Welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm your host, Darrell Scott, and together we will dive into the lives and careers of the jazz legends who have left a rhythmic imprint on the world. Be prepared to reminisce on the highs and the lows of their musical journey and the trials that sculpted their timeless musical gems. We'll preserve the legacy of these extraordinary maestros and find inspiration in the melodies of their lives. Subscribe now and never miss a beat. Now, let's get to the show. Welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm Darrell Scott. Our guest today is a man who's been nominated for Grammys, has been nominated for Stellar Awards, and he's played with some guy named Prince. Some of you all may have heard of him. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast, Mr. Marcus Anderson. Marcus, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing good. How about you?
I am hanging in there, and I must say, I will admit this. I saw you perform at the Dave Koz Christmas show here in Cleveland. It would have been last year.
Yeah.
And it's funny, didn't know a whole lot about you at that point, but watched your performance and went, somehow I got to get a hold of this guy and get him on the show.
Yeah.
So first of all, how'd you get started in all of this crazy stuff called music?
First, thanks for having me on the show. But how I got started is that, I come from a very musical family, and my dad kind of got me into playing a saxophone, but I'm the youngest of 7, and all of my siblings do something musical. Not all are in the music industry, but everybody's super talented, especially on my mom's side.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to listen to a lot of Motown, and we had a big organ in our house too that I would just kind of like tinkle on. And one of my brothers plays piano, and he's an accomplished producer. And being around so many family members that does music, it kind of it was my environment, so I absorbed a lot of that influence, and it made me want to just kind of be in music more. I knew nothing else but music. It's like I knew that I wanted to do it. It was my beginning and end to everything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of how I started in it.
So will we ever see a Anderson family project of somebody, one family member produces it, the rest of you play? Will we ever see anything like that?
It's possible.
Gotta let me know when it happens, man, so we can put it out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll work on it.
Okay. All right. I always try to put a bunch of ideas into the people I talk to. So
Mhm.
whether it's
Yeah.
if you tour a lot and you go to different
Mhm.
places, take pictures and come up with a coffee table picture
Mhm.
book.
Yeah.
I tried to convince people to create. I was talking to Nathan East and his son Noah, and I said, why isn't there a bass concert with Nathan, Stanley Clark, Marcus Miller, Victor Wooten, and
Right.
just do a show like that? I said, I'm sure it would sell out. And Noah, his son, is sitting there going,
Yes,
hey,
it
Dad,
would.
we got to work on that. And I'm like, I just need a credit, just on the back of the album sleeve or something. Just put it out there. Now, one of the things
Yeah,
I'm not sure if many people know about you is that you spent some time playing with Prince.
I did.
First of
Yeah.
all, how did you get started with that? And from him, what did you learn that you have applied to your career?
So I kind of got started with Prince when I was in California filling in for a buddy of mine at a show, and at the time I didn't know that the bass player on that particular jam session was working with Prince. And he asked me, he said, hey, are you working with any artists right now? And I said, no, I'm just kind of doing my solo thing. And he was like, well, I got an artist you might want to, consider working with. He never told me the name. He said, you got any videos I can send them? And I said, well, yeah, I just send you, these videos. And he found them, he sent them to Prince. And then next thing I know, that this was Sunday, that Wednesday, I had a call saying, hey, Marcus, this is Andrew Goucher, Prince. I sent him your videos. He loves what you want to do. He loves what you do. And he wants to bring you out to Minneapolis and join the band. And I was like blown away. And that's just kind of how it started. And that was back in 2012. And I was with him until, his passing until 2016. Yeah.
What is that feeling like, that emotion like when I'm sure and I'm just guessing. So you get the call
Hmm.
and you're like, sure, right, you're not really who you say you are. And then
Oh
they
yeah.
kind of prove it.
Oh yeah.
And then like your heart sinks and you're like, I hope I didn't screw this up by saying what I said. What is that emotion that you go through once you get that call?
It's like you have the emotion and you get excited like, man, is it really getting ready to happen? Because every musician has a moment in their career where they feel like, am I good enough? It's almost like imposter syndrome that even when you do get it, it's like something's going to go wrong. Something's going to go wrong. So I had to start flipping my mindset instead of thinking glass half empty, glass half full, and just know that I am good enough and just go through the opportunity that's there in front of me, do my best, show up, keep my word. And that's pretty much it. And just everything just started happening. So that feeling that you get, you kind of have to shake because most musicians go into a situation, believe it or not, either overly confident or not
Hmm.
as confident, which are both are bad. You have to find that happy medium when you're confident in yourself and your artistry, but then also at the same time have the humility that where it balances out and keeps you right in the middle.
Were there opportunities, and I talked to somebody else about this, where
Hmm.
you stepped up and you had your shine for whatever solo he allowed you to play? Um,
Hmm.
do you ask for that solo, or do you just go, he's going to tell me what to do, I'll be out here for as long as he wants me to, and I'll go from there?
Yeah, it's very pretentious if you ask for a solo. You want to allow the artist to dictate that because at that point, that's the tail wagging the dog, and we just don't do that.
Hmm.
You just allow for the moment to happen, and then if you sound good and you do well, they'll give you another, and then another, and then another, which kind of would happen with me. So I was very, very excited when I was getting all these solos and getting all these moments to shine and be on stage. I was like, yes, I'm being cemented in history with him on stage. So it was kind of cool.
So prior to Prince, were you doing contemporary jazz?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, he found me as a solo artist. I had already put out like 7 albums, 6 or 7 albums by the time I was working with him. And I had, concerts. I had been touring with Anthony Hamilton, Sheila E. I'd worked with Eric Benet, Bobby Caldwell, a lot of artists prior to that. Prince was just the pinnacle of my artistry at that time. It was I considered it going back to school to get a master's in education of business and music.
How So you're in the contemporary jazz world and you go to
Hmm.
Prince. Not
Hmm.
necessarily the same silo, we'll say.
Hmm.
Did you have to rehearse? Did you have to redevelop your skills? And then once you're done with him, you go back to contemporary jazz. Is that
Yeah.
a tough change?
No, you just use it. Um, it only enhanced what I was doing back then, just become like an ultimate entertainer and performer. I was already at a high functioning level when it came to performance, but then when I got with Prince, I learned a different way to perform and how to work the crowd and how to move the crowd. So it was just it was a cool adjustment to go back and say, hey, look what I learned, world, working
Right.
with Prince, and Kenny Dofer and Mike Phillips. I just saw him the other day. And we had conversations about it. And what he got from Prince is very similar to what I got from Prince and how we
Hmm.
use it in our show. So you may see similarities in people like Candy Dofer and Mike Phillips and me on how we conduct ourselves on stage and in the show. It has that same energy and that same demand. So there's always it's always cool to kind of see that too. You know.
Who were your influences growing up? What other people did you follow or did you listen to?
Heavy influences were definitely Donald Hayes, who's a gospel saxophonist, Kirk Whalum, Everett Hart, Gerald Albright. Walter Beasley became a heavy influence later on, and those were my main guys. And of course, in the straight ahead jazz world, Joshua Redman, Branford Marcellus. I really didn't really get too fond of Coltrane, believe it or not, until
Really?
like later on. Yeah, he wasn't one of my go-tos until like later on in life. It's just I wasn't connecting with it until a little bit later on, but I was definitely connecting with Cannonball Adderley and Charlie Parker. It's just it took a while for me to absorb that. It takes a while for me because I didn't grow up listening to that style of music.
Right,
So
right.
it was a bit disorienting, for me to go from contemporary jazz to just like, now listen to John Coltrane. Don't you like it? And I was like, no. In school, I said, give me anyone else. That I had to kind of be spoon fed that. Now I love listening to him, like I love Supreme, like those albums. Oh my gosh, I can't really go, a day or a week without listening to that because, it just took a while. I was listening to Stanley Turrentine. I'm like, all right, this is kind of my vibe. And then Gene Ammons. And then it started kind of opening up my mind a little bit more to appreciate that. I just didn't have an appreciation of it until later on,
You're a fan of Giant Steps?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it. I mean, anything John Coltrane, I like. I mean, just uh, great. I mean, like back then, I didn't have the capacity to absorb that
Right.
and everything they were giving me at school.
So right now, with everybody that's out, and there's, as I told somebody, there's 17,468 saxophone players.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you follow? Who do you think might be the next Marcus Anderson?
Oh man, it's hard to say because it's not tied to like an instrument or anything like that. I think it's in the artistry and how artists look at what I do and then expand off of that, because I ended up learning from people like Prince and how they did their performances and how they carry themselves in
Mm-hmm.
business, and people like Dave Koz. Um, I'm a hybrid, and I'm a cluster of all those different artists and musicians rolled up into one. That you'll get a performance, you'll get a comedian, you'll get a business guy like me. I'm in the coffee business, and I write books and comic books, and I teach and I educate. So the next after that, I don't really know. I mean, I mentor students and I mentor people, but I never try to make a copy of me. I just try to influence the artists and people that are around me to not just make, versions of me, but to influence people to say, hey, I've shown you a way to do it. You can take this similar path, or you can take it and go in a different direction. That's where I'm at with a lot of it. I'm just trying to influence other people to not just be another version of me. And that's fine if they want to be, but I think it's cooler and it makes more sense for them to take it a step further and do it differently, and just be a better version, a stronger version, of me.
Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Jazz Flyte Podcast. You're listening to a gentleman by the name of Marcus Anderson. Marcus has music out, and I think you should hear some of it. And right now, we're going to listen to Soul Ties on the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I read somewhere where your band's name is The Creatives.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with that name?
It's based on my comic book that I wrote that's based on musician superheroes. And my band, I wrote a comic book based on musician superheroes, and they're called The Creatives. So like my band, we're all musicians, and every artist and dancer and artist that actually like paints, and all of us are called creatives because we create music. We create stuff in the arts. It's not just centered around like a instrumentalist. And I just kind of gave the band that name, The Creatives. It was cool. Now, when we go out certain places, the band is known as either the Carolina Collective or the East Coast Collective. But more than anything, I just try to create an identity for, my band that support me. Mm-hmm. So they can have their own type of identity and personality, that if they're not with me, they can go and do their own thing. That they're labeled as that. So
you're from Carolina?
I am. Yep. Carolina right here.
Let's go talk. That's what I'm about to talk about. I will wish you hope for a quarterback. I don't know who I can give you, but I'm gonna wish you hope for a quarterback. It's football. I'm in Cleveland, so
it's rough. It's rough right now for us, man.
Yeah. I get it. I saw one thing, and the one thing I want to talk about real quick is you are very much into the technology of this music. I
Hmm.
saw you do a couple of things on your website. You do all of this stuff.
Hmm.
How are you using that to benefit your career?
And remember when you say that, it reminds me of a conversation I had with Branford Marcellus when I was in school, and I got to study with him. I asked him, I said, now that you won these Grammys, man, I bet you must just stay booked and work. I mean, I'm green, I'm ignorant, I don't really know a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm
Hmm.
assuming, and I'm just saying all these assumptions that you have and people have that if you get a Grammy, everybody comes knocking. He's like, no, he said, man, that thing is collecting dust on this and that collecting dust on that. And I'm like, really? It's like people don't value. He said, no. He said they don't put butts in the seats. He's like people that like that. He said that the award ceremony is a popularity contest that people get to vote on you if they like you. And I was like, oh, man. He said I have to have a Grammy. I have to have these number ones. I have to go on the Tonight Show. I have to work with Steen, all this stuff. And you have to put all of it in a big pile. Then you make it work for how if you want to make it. If you want to go into higher ed or if you want to go
Right.
into being something else, a musician, you let it all work for what you're doing, building a brand. And that's when I understood, all right, it takes all these things to help build the brand that I have as an artist, as a musician. And my second thing was to take things that I like and help when I go into work and go into business, I'm doing things that I like that are going to create more work that I use and help enhance my career. So that's when I, go into the comic book writing, the stuff that I do at the school, my nonprofit, my coffee business, my jazz festival, all those things, and the touring with Prince and all these other artists. You take all of it and put it into one big pile and say, look, this is what I have, this is who I am. And it makes people, want to buy into you. It makes you more presentable, it makes you more desirable when it comes to a lot of stuff from what you wear on stage, from your number ones that you get on Billboard. I mean, there's so many different things that you use to enhance your brand. Yeah.
Why did you get into coffee?
Because actually I didn't like it at first. But
Right.
and I tell people, and people are like, man, you're a terrible salesman. But I'm like, here's the point. I didn't like it at first because I had a trauma when I was a kid. My mom let me taste coffee, and I was like, yeah, it smelled great. I love the smell of it. And I tried
Right.
it. I was like, I'm thinking it's gonna taste like hot chocolate. And it was disgusting back then. But as I grew older, I still had that in my mind. And when I finally got to, drink coffee, because I needed to get off of energy drinks, I was drinking Mountain Dew Amp,
Ugh.
and it was delicious. I loved it, but it wasn't healthy for me. And I was coming down, and I didn't want to drink Red Bull anymore. So I went to a coffee shop, Caribou Coffee. This is when I was in Minneapolis, working with Prince. Or actually, Chanhassen, Minnesota, working with Prince. And I just like I need some coffee. I need something. I need something to kind of help me stay up for these long rehearsals. So ended up having that coffee, and I'm like, this is great. And I just became a coffee drinker, like avid coffee drinker after that, and fell in love with it. And I just noticed it was sparking this creativity in my mind to create and to be this, extra person now, that had this energy. And then I started just kind of creating and writing songs, and it allowed me to just like hear songs and write music. And before I knew it, I created this whole album based on coffee drinking experiences. So after that, I just kind of like put all it together in the album. I said, I wonder what it would take for me to put out like a coffee jazz album and package it with coffee. And I just kind of like went down that rabbit hole. And here we are, 9 years later, I'm in the coffee business. And then now 6 years later, I have a jazz and coffee festival. And it just kind of everything just kind of been snowballing into other stuff. And now I have like other products I'm getting ready to roll out with my and products line. Like, so the name of the coffee is and coffee, and it's based off the first three letters of my last name, Anderson. So you got
Mhm.
jazz and coffee. It's like a double entendre. You can use the and for anything, but it's really based off the first three letters of my last name. So next year I have and cigars coming out, and tea, and candles. A whole bunch of and line of products. So and products is the name of the website, andproducts.net.
Okay, I'm just a simple guy here in Cleveland
Uh-huh.
doing a podcast.
Uh-huh.
You've got a lot of things going on. How do you manage your time? How do you, if you're writing a comic book, which I know is not an easy task, and I don't know if you know
Mm-hmm.
Jakeem Joyner. Jakeem Joyner's got
Mm-hmm.
books out. I,
Mm-hmm.
I I don't know when you guys have time for coffee, for this, for that, but and you're opening up other things, and you're still
Mm-hmm.
touring and you're still doing music. Dude, how do you do it?
Time management, believe it or not. I mean, I don't work a regular 9 to 5 job. And
Right.
then even when I'm like sitting and I'm in the car, I'm like, oh, I got an idea about something because I enjoy it. All right, I put it in my notes at my phone. I write everything down. And then I'm like, all right, cool. Like the years before, I would always just write everything down. That was the start of it. I would have the idea. That was like the end of it. Like, this is what I want it to be. And I would put bullet points in there and I would just kind of work my way backwards. And I would take it and I would just put this idea over here. And every now and then I go back to those ideas and I go and try to work on it a little bit at a time. Sometimes ideas I don't touch for like a year or two, but it's there and it's ready for me. So as it's being birthed in my mind, it sits. It doesn't mean that it's going to come out in like next week or next month or next year. But the comic book idea of that, I mean, that sat in my brain for about maybe a year and a half, 2 years. Same thing with the coffee thing, and wanted to do a jazz event. That was in my head for like 5 years before it actually happened. So it sat there and I had a lot of time to sit with it. But then I started figuring out ways to be effective and productive and like launching stuff and figuring out a system to be effective with putting out all these different ideas. Like I was working on albums and stuff, and I had great time management. Now it's not so much. Golf is kind of taking over a good bit of it, but I have help now and I have an effective team. Actually downsized because like I found myself being more effective with less people.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a 3-person team and we just get things done. It's like, all right, this is my goal. This is what I have. This is what I've started. You take it here and they pass it back. This is what we have. All right, cool. Approval. Boom, put it over there. I mean, I have good time management.
Dude,
That's all I really can say. It's a lot of hours in a day, and there's a lot of time being wasted now on like social media. And then we have a lot of help nowadays that makes it easier for you to have a smaller team with AI.
right.
A lot of stuff. I mean, it just makes it, if someone doesn't have a job or something to do, they're not putting out dreams and goals and stuff that they have in their head. And like I always have this saying, like 80% to the world is better than 100% in your head. It'll never be 100%. You're always going to find something to tweak. 80% to the world is better than 100% in your head.
Thank you. We're going to go one more song. This is, and I'm a child of the 70s and 80s. So when I saw this title, I thought Silver Connection, and most people won't remember who the Silver Connection is, but they might remember the title. The title of the song is Any Way You Want It. Our guest today on the Jazz Flyte Podcast, Mr. Marcus Anderson. Marcus, I also saw something where you're a little bit concerned with your health. You do boxing.
You
get hit in boxing.
Mm-hmm.
You're a musician. Ever been hit hard enough to where you can't play or can't do anything?
Some people, were thinking like, like when I was boxing, I'm not going out and competing or anything.
Right.
I'm not,
right.
I'm not going and like sparring or anything like that. I've done it like once or twice, but I go into the gym, and I had a boxing coach at the time, and I needed to drop some weight and all this stuff. And it was a good focus point to kind of like escape from stuff. And it was just good like technique. It was a good stress reliever. So I more so did boxing to like be in shape, but boxing just takes so much to get it going. I'm like, oh, man, I had to let it go. I don't do it as much, but yeah, boxing is kind of a thing, but I'm not out here going and competing. So
let me say this, even though I can't see all of you, I'm still not jumping up on stage and taking you on. I'm not doing that. And the other thing is, can you fit that vest that you showed?
Yeah, I can. I see. I can fit it. Yeah.
Okay. As we wrap up here, tell our fans how they can follow you and follow everything that you have, your social media presence, stuff like that.
You can follow me on Manderson Sax. That's my personal page for all of the platforms: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Also, you can follow Mayjace Fest. That's my social media handle. So MAJACE. It looks like Majace,
Yes.
Jace. But you can follow that Mayjace Fest on Facebook, Instagram, and then also follow and Coffee Pro on Instagram as well, and also on Facebook if you want to get my coffee. Or you can just go to my website, marcusdavidson.net. There's a button that kind of points you to all those different places. And you can go order my coffee and soon my cigars and candles and tea in 2025.
Dude, when I come down to Carolina and I see this 12-story building that'll have your name on it, I go, okay, he's made it. He's made it. Because it looks like you got a lot of stuff going on. What's new coming up? You got any new music, anything like that?
I'm mixing and editing the video from my festival. I'm going to try to air it on my birthday.
When's your birthday?
November 23rd.
Not a great day. If you were born in September, like my birthday was a couple of days ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, September is it's a weird month. I don't know what it is.
Thank you. And we're weird people. That's just to say that.
Yeah.
So that's it. Okay, man, I greatly appreciate the time. We will look forward to you. Hopefully we will see you in the Cleveland area sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
I reserve the right to call you back when other things are happening, and we'll do our best to promote all your music and everything that you do.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
How about some sample coffee? We'll talk later. All right, folks. Thank you.
I got you. I'll send it to you.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I hope you enjoy these stories and soulful melodies that grew through the doors of time. If you want to stay connected with the latest updates and episodes, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Until next time, I'm Darrell Scott.